Salud, conectando ciencia, tecnología y cuidado humano. Nos acompañan tres mentes brillantes con perspectivas únicas sobre cómo los datos y la innovación están redefiniendo el cuidado de la salud. Christopher Westland, profesor de University of Illinois a Chicago. Sigrid Berge van Rooijen, asesora en inteligencia artificial en salud para EIR Health. José Fernando Flores Arango, profesor de Weill Cornell Medicine. Este panel será moderado por Andrés Mora Gómez, director del Centro de Inteligencia Artificial de la Fundación Cardiovascular de Colombia.
All right, good morning to all. Thank you so much for being with us here. It's been a really interesting event, even though we have some issues with transportation, but thank you for taking the time to come here. We have three excellent speakers and people from the panel that we are going to discuss later today. Let me introduce them, and I'm going to give them a couple minutes so they can tell a little bit more about themselves. Sigrid, she comes from actually Norway and the Netherlands. She's one of the AI advisors that we got in touch a couple months ago, and we have really interesting ideas and things that we want to start doing with her. Professor Chris, he gave me a couple classes back in 2020 in UIC, in the University of Illinois in Chicago. He is a full-time professor there. And Dr. Jose, he comes from Weill Cornell Medicine. He's an associate professor, Colombian, living in the United States. And well, he's going to be here also with all of us, talking a little bit more about AI processes, people, hypes, things that usually we don't consider during these conversations. So I'm going to give you a couple seconds, guys, so you can introduce and tell a little bit more about yourselves.
Hi, so I'm Sigrid. The ones who were here earlier this morning, they already know a bit of who I am. But I'm I'm helping organizations with how to use AI, what AI is, and how to use it responsibly, and implement it into the processes. So focusing on that, bringing value to the patient and bringing value to healthcare professionals.
My name's Chris Westland. I guess I got my start in a university town in Indiana, Bloomington, Indiana, and went through quite a number of jobs before I really sort of ended up as a professor. I was a certified public accountant in Chicago and worked in IT industry, came back for a PhD, and have worked at University of Southern California, Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, where my children grew up, and now at University of Illinois, Chicago. My main focus is data analytics, applied statistics, and machine learning.
And I'm Jose Flores. I'm a physician by training from Universidad Antioquia in Colombia, in Medellin City. And I have been in informatics for a long time. Since 1994, I have been doing health informatics in Colombia initially, then now doing a lot of global health work, especially in adopting technologies in low resources environments and optimizing resources in those domains. And later we are going to be talking about exciting things that are going to happen in the future, but I think we can start because that thing doesn't stop.
Yeah, the clock is ticking. So, well, thank you so much. I'm Andrés Mora. I'm the director of the AI department here in Fundación Cardiovascular de Colombia. There's coffee for you guys if you want. Feel free while it's hot. Okay, well, if you want, it's perfect. So I'm going to start with some opening questions. Feel free to respond and answer whenever you feel. So we've seen, and even in this event, a lot of hype with AI. We want to solve everything with AI. We think that AI is going to solve all the problems and issues in our institutions. What does real progress mean in health institutions? What do you think will be the secret or the magic formula so we can implement AI in our health institutions and environments?
Yeah, I can go.
A hard question, definitely, for you. But
it's a lot. There's a lot of things to address. I think your question is quite broad. So first of all, I think you need to think about what you want to achieve. I'm saying that a lot. So what is your goal? What do you want to achieve with AI? There is a lot of hype. There is also a lot of potential. But before you really know what you want to achieve, you can also not measure whether you are achieving it. And you hear, like I've heard stories of failed processes and failed solutions as well a lot, and often they're doing more harm than actually benefiting healthcare. So for example, there's one story from the Netherlands where I live, where a tool they wanted to help diagnose, I guess, I can't remember which diagnosis, we'll say cancer, yeah? So they wanted to diagnose cancer earlier. But by implementing this into the process, the whole healthcare professionals, they spent more time logging into the system, finding using the system, getting it up and running. They spend 15 minutes more per patient than you did before. So you need to have the process right. You need to understand what you're trying to achieve, which process are you trying to achieve it with, and then you can go.
What percentage do you think from all the projects or initiatives that you might implement in AI is actually, failed? Because we think that everything's going to work, but I think a high percentage of projects fail during that time of implementation.
No, but before answering that question, I want to go a little bit back, even before the goal. You need to understand your problem.
Definitely.
What is the problem that you are facing? Because, for example, if what you want to do is reference values, that's just a lookup table. It's just a clear decision. You don't want to put a whole AI system that is costly, not only in computing time, in energy, and other stuff for those things. But now a percentage is really difficult to measure, but at least the historical measures of failed projects in healthcare is around 60%. And it's not because of the technology.
That's right.
It's not because of the technology, it's because we didn't understood the process, we didn't understood the problem. Yes, it's a problem of execution and planning more than the technology is the problem. It's when there is a mismatch into the solution and the problem.
Yeah, I want to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
I want to build on that. So I think, and I come from a business background, but fundamentally the first thing you want to do when you have a new project is ask the consumer or find out who the consumer is. And in this case, in hospitals, it's going to be doctors, nurses, the healthcare professionals, patients. And I definitely do not want to be choosing a tool to solve their problems until I know what they think, what their problem is, what's important and what's not. Longer run, I think you want to try and set benchmarks. And hospitals have them. I think they vary probably quite a bit between hospitals, but you have performance benchmarks. You have health benchmarks. You have percentage of patients that are surviving, amongst other things. That's something we think about in the US, and numerous other things. You also want to think about cost, because if you can't keep your cost down, ultimately you're going to have to ration healthcare, and maybe just to the richest people. I mean, nobody wants to be a hospital that teaches or that solves only problems of the rich, or maybe only a few hospitals.
Equity, pretty much.
Yeah. So I think, you want to have essentially good healthcare available to everybody, and that only comes if you can meet your goals and keep your costs down. And AI is just a tool, so it shouldn't be there until all of these other issues are resolved.
Sigrid, I'm going to give you a couple words and see if they ring a bell to you. Family, emotions, cancer, technology. How do we keep up with that? I mean, I kind of feel identified with you. My mom is suffering of cancer. I think you are going through the same. How do you think we should keep up with that? Mixing technology and the right technology to help not the patient, but also the relatives that are around the problems?
Good question. Personal question. There's actually, I can tell about my story, but actually there's a great example of someone from the US. His name is John, and he got a heart condition. He didn't know. He was sick. And he figured out through ChatGPT, by the way, that he might have this and this diagnosis. I'm not saying, again, it's ChatGPT. General ChatGPT is not for medical purposes, but this helped him. And it helped him get a diagnosis. And he knew he had to have surgery. He had 2 young kids, and going through, and he's quite young, and going through, he needed to go to surgery. It was an open heart surgery. And I'm also like surprised, like the creativity of how he's thinking about it, but it answers your question a bit. And he's struggling with this. How do I explain my teenage daughter what I'm going to go through? How do I explain that daddy needs to go to another hospital, like needs to take a flight, needs to go to a hospital and have surgery? So he created this, his own ChatGPT app to create a song, Taylor Swift song-ish, for the daughter to explain what the dad had, what he was going to go through, so that she would understand it. And through that, like simple tools, just kind of explaining, okay, this is what daddy's going through, this is the surgery we're going to go through, and explaining them in simple words for his children. And it's not the only way AI can help, but I think technology can help in explaining things, helping you with understanding the next steps you need to take, helping you understand how to prepare, also more emotionally. Okay, so what asking questions, so what type of impacts will this have on you as a patient or your relatives who are going through something? What do I need to prepare for? Because I know, well, when I was a kid, I also I got in contact with healthcare services quite early because my dad had a car accident. Same dad who died later from cancer, so he has a lot about my dad. But it was such a trauma, and I coped very, very well, too well, so that everyone thought I was doing great because I just ignored it. And I think technology could have helped with that, help you kind of detect, okay, but why are you always happy? Or like you're always, and I would just break down. I remember like having computer lesson in school and I couldn't change the word, like the font in that, that's what we had to learn, change the font and the letter. And I broke down crying because I hadn't coped with the trauma. And I think technology could have helped with detecting things for family, helping my parents or my mom, because my dad was in the hospital, but helping my mom, even the teachers to figure out who would need support.
Thank you. Pretty emotional, I think, but it means a lot, those things and those histories. Professor Jose, healthcare professionals, AI, we are bombing them with technology, screens, video feeds, pictures, medical records, values. How do you think they can keep up with that and the stress? Because I think they suffer a lot, and they are going through a bunch of emotions as well while they're performing the job and while they have to be with the patient. How do you think technology should be responsibly implemented with them?
Yes, the thing is, that's a really complex problem, no? And burnout by technology is a reality, because not necessarily the way that we implement technology is solving the provider problem. And I'm going to be a little bit subversive here, no? It's solving the administrative problem. It's not solving the problem of the patient. And that has been common in a lot of environments. Then when you transfer activities that are not part of their job description, that's going to create a load. And we see a lot of people that they don't want to continue in the profession just because the load that information systems are putting in them, but those information systems, they don't see a value because it's not helping them do their job. It's just in function of the administration. And I'm not against administration, and we are going to talk that a little bit later today, but it's how we find that balance. And the other thing is, we are still using electronic health records in particular as is they were paper records. We have not changed the clinical encounter. And we are not using the power of technology. For example, we still do through a review of systems. We still go through past medical history in the encounter when that data could be collected or in the
Before
pre-encounter
triage.
or triaging or the registration or when you make the appointment, and you can start changing the interaction. And one of my teachers back in Cornell, he's an internist, he said, I will be $1 million to the one that can help me solve the problem of pre-charting. Pre-charting is the process that going through the medical records of the patients that I'm going to be looking into the day. It takes him hours just to try to dig into the data because the interfaces are not facilitating that. But it's a problem of implementation. It's not a problem of the technology per se. It's because we are using the technology in the wrong way. And then, yes, the call for the medical schools and everything, we may need to start thinking differently in the way that we do the anamnesis, in the way that we obtain data, in the way that we do physical exam. And in that way, we can start looking into more important things, that is looking into the eye of the patient, touching the patient, really having that contact, because that's valuable. I remember one of the projects that we did back with one of the insurance companies, 20 minutes encounter, 16 minutes documenting. We were able to improve the interface a little bit, and from 16 documenting to 12 minutes, that's 4 minutes less, but that's 100% more for the patient. And it's 4 minutes, but in 4 minutes you can do a lot.
I'm gonna shoot you back with another question that just came up. You kind of say that we should transfer part of the consultation process to a pre-consultation process to the patient. How do we deal with patients that come from rural areas, that they don't have computer access, that they're probably elders, but we want to get information from them before the consultation?
Do we have phones?
Do
We have a speech to text, and we have.
Do they have phones, all of them?
All of
or
them?
Internet access?
I don't say in smartphones. I'm not saying internet.
Regular phones.
Regular phones, landlines. And those are part of those things of low resource environments that we have found that could be way of doing that. Or we have schools. At least in Colombia, we have every single community is organized around a school, and most of them, they have internet. Why wouldn't enable those schools? Because we need to have a community health actors on those schools and make those schools nodes for the communities. And why not facilitate that internet connection or the phone that is there or something like that to do that data collection?
Okay.
And actually, the schools is where we have the kids and are the ones that we need to be taking care of really early in stage. And
So
but
pretty much
it's thinking in a different way and out of
older
the box.
technologies can still work for us.
Correct, and even paper.
All right. Yeah, we want to go paperless all the time, but sometimes, populations are not very...
No, we were discussing emergency situations in different hospitals around the country the other night, no? Somebody just forgot to put fuel in the power plant, and you have a power outage, and the power plant didn't come in, and then you have UPSs that are running out, and you don't have system. Paper is still a backup, and there are still things that can be done on paper, because we don't need the persistence of the data, but we need the cognitive aid for those brains that need the paper.
Thank you, Dr. Jose. Professor Westland, AI again. How do we respectfully and responsible think or start dealing with AI implementation? Because we think that AI is the solution for everything. We think that it's going to help processes and people, even though they might be struggling first. But we want to solve everything with AI. We want to solve everything with tools and technology. But we tend to forget processes and technology first. How do we keep up with that? How do we deal with that?
Well, you have to remember that that AI is a solution for everything is what the vendors are telling you. So don't believe them, first of all. They would say that, wouldn't they? The second thing is to realize that there's no AI. If you look at Hugging Face, the platform for people who upload AIs, 1.4 million and counting. different AIs. Basically, when DeepSeek became a thing in the US, there were 600 different versions of DeepSeek because it was totally open sourced by Yang Wenfang, the CEO of DeepSeek. It was open sourced, and there were 600 different versions within a day of that. So there's a lot of stuff out there. Second thing is, remember, at the end of the day, it's the doctor or the health professional that should decide what the workflow is, not the guy who's trying to sell you AI. Okay, ultimately, they've got to define what the problem is that you want to solve, and then you've got to go around and select. Maybe you go to Hugging Face and choose one of those 1.4 million models and decide which one works, or maybe you choose something else. I always think it's good for people who are talking a lot and doing a lot with AI to build their own. Go to Python, go to PyTorch. These are open source tools, and there's a lot of literature out there that teaches you how to use these. You're not going to build a 100-layer neural network, but build a 5-layer one. Build an autoencoder. Just get to know what these things can and can't do and how they process data through them. The last thing is, if you're talking about ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, these large language models, I'll tell you a story about where these came from and go back into the 1980s. And there was a little group in Taiwan, that it was actually a division of Microsoft, that was doing sentence completion for Microsoft Word. And why would they do that? Well, because the Chinese character set is very complex, and the Taiwanese tend to use these really complex stroke-based systems for building their characters. You might take 10 strokes to build a character, and they use full stroke in Taiwan. So these guys developed this system, this clever system, that if you put in a few strokes, it would guess what the next characters were going to be, or what the full character was going to be, or even the word, because Chinese words are 2 or 3 characters. Everything was going fine until some of the guys programmed in sentence completions that were anti-communist slogans, and Beijing complained. And so the whole process got moved up to Beijing, to a group that I know, Kingstar. Anyway, fast forward to 2000, and Google, in its search, is saying, hey, that's a pretty great technology, so let's do sentence completion. And then Google becomes the leader in AI, and it starts really building this out with its artificial intelligence. First at the time of ImageNet, when Jeff Hinton was working at the company in 2012, 2014, and then with the transformer models that we know of now. And basically what these large language models is a continuation of the development of that sentence completion. Now, is sentence completion what you want to apply to patients, or is it something that actually is more medicine specific, that actually looks not at all this stuff that people have written that's got its bias and false news and so forth, or do you want to actually look at verified, replicable scientific data and build your own AI? Now, that's just a question. I mean, it's not out there, but that's the ideal tool. Don't believe the vendors.
Good advice. We'll definitely take it into account. To wrap up, I want to end with a final question, a general question for all of you guys. We always been saying that bad inputs equals bad outputs, pretty much. Garbage in, garbage out. But in healthcare, bad data could mean definitely bad outcomes for our patients. I mean, patient is in the front line, and we are kind of like playing a thin line between using technology and having technology solve our issues and make decisions. But we definitely need good data to take good decisions. How do we as health institutions use it in a responsible way and always try to govern all the data that is in our systems and that sometimes can be in a bad shape?
That's we don't have the whole day to answer that. That's a loaded question because data capture by itself, it's a problem just from there. And anticipate which data we want to capture is another problem. And if we want to structure that, that's one of the flaws of the electronic health record, because we want it every single in a field, in a specific place, that's going to slow down the humans. And we are going to have that dilemma always, because we can have the templates to fill out the blanks, but still the problem of fill out the blanks, and we are restricting the flow because the way that we think as human beings and the process of the physician is not the computer way of expecting the data.
Or the engineer way. Or the engineer way.
Or the engineer way. Then we are going to have some issues there. That's why I really used to say the best solution is like we are just talking, somebody is recording the interaction, not only the voice, because we need the nonverbal cues and other elements that are happening in the environment, and try to translate that and encoding that. We have technology that is able to do part of that. There are still things that we need to do that, and we don't know how we are going to deal with that, because also we are so afraid of data. Because when you capture everything, you put in evidence some stuff. And we also talk about ethics and everything, but physicians and nurses, sometimes we just see blood pressure, 120, 80, and 60 of heart rate, and it's continuous. Then are they really taking that blood pressure, or are they just conforming with the system? And it's a more complex and a human interaction problem, and we need to start exploring more interfaces and more way of capturing data in order to be able to really use it. And the other thing is we don't know what we don't know, and there are data that we are not going to be able to capture, or maybe we discover something in the future, and you want to look into the past, you never capture that data, and there's no way of recovering that.
Just before I'll let you guys answer, there's something really remarkable that you just mentioned. We want to get 100% of the data from the patient at all times. Do we really need the 100%? And we don't usually take all the decisions based on that 100%. We could use just, I don't know, 40, 30% of that data and take the same decisions or even better decisions just with a less portion of data.
Correct. No, the way that the human brain in the diagnostics process, we can mimic that is in a Bayes theorem, basically, and we don't know that sometimes. We are just having a signal, and there is a probability of that signal encoding for something. Then, because this patient, I found this value of blood pressure, it has certain probability of having a high, normal, or low blood pressure. We don't compute in that way, but there is some insight about those things, and that's the way that we make diagnosis. And that's the difference with computer. We process with uncertainty, and that's where that clinical eye or the gut feeling that sometimes we develop as clinicians come into place, because yes, we don't have the time, we don't have the bandwidth, we don't have the processing capability of collecting all the data, and that's something that we really need to start dealing with. That data is dirty, incomplete, and not precise.
Thank you. What do you think about data? How do we deal with it? Garbage in, garbage out.
So I was going to pick up on that issue because I know you mentioned that. So I think part of the problem, and I hope no one in the crowd takes this personally, but I don't think healthcare professionals are particularly good statisticians. In fact, they may be some of the worst statisticians out there. So who are they? Okay, so the place, I mean, if you want to really look at somebody who surveys this quite a bit, it's Nate Silver. He's got a book, The Signal and the Noise. It's maybe 10 years old, but it's a really nice book. The best guys out there are the quant finance people and the weathermen. They are able to extract a signal from noise in ways that other people can't. It's important to note that these guys are generally Bayesians, and if you talk Bayesian statistics with anybody in healthcare, typically they just draw a blank or they just think it's too complex to deal with. But Bayesian statistics basically help you a lot because you can get streams of data and constantly update your odds. And I might put in a pitch. My most recent book, which just got on the shelves a couple of months ago, is Bayesian A/B decision models. I'm going to give a copy to you. I've tried to make this a very accessible book, but if you want to kind of know how people are using this in various different professions, this tries to lay out how you can do it along with code and so forth. The other thing about statistics is that we have models now because we have the compute power to do really complex things that we couldn't even do 10 years ago to pull a signal out of really noisy data. So if it is garbage data, we're going to know it's garbage. If it's good data, we're going to know it's good data. And if it's somewhere in between, we're going to pull out the good and throw away the bad. We can do that with our current models. If we want to go a step further, program your own multi-head attention transformer models. Make your own models that are like the LLMs, but train on your data and train on very small data sets. And it doesn't have to be a huge operation like you have it with Grok or ChatGPT. You can have things that would fit on your personal computer. So just my advice, I think we can do a lot better in healthcare with the tools that we have.
Agreed?
Yeah. So I'm going to go a bit back and also a bit to what Jose earlier said. But so what we're doing now with technology, EHR systems, it's really just you had a process and having things on paper, and you put on top of that, you put technology. We're doing the same exact thing as we did with paper. Now we're just using computers. It's not a smart way of working. It's not a different way of working. And that's kind of been like pushed from the top to the bottom because we are all going to go no paper and be digital. And so I'm questioning how much have healthcare professionals been a part of this process? How do you collect data? What data do you collect? Why are we doing it? And coming from a healthcare background myself, and it's always been, and my mom's a nurse, and a lot of friends also, and I hear like, okay, but we need just like another thing we need to collect, another thing we need to measure, another thing we need to put in the system, and they never know why. But also, admin also don't know why. So it's like, why does the admin or like whoever, management, why do they need this data? And you need to be, like, you have to have an alignment. So what data are we collecting? How are we collecting it? And why are we collecting it? What added value does that bring? And it's back to the same question of why are we using AI? For what purpose? What is the problem we're trying to solve? What is the goal we're having? And the same comes with the data. So what is the problem we're trying to solve with the data we're collecting? What are we trying to achieve with collecting this data? Is that necessary? So going back to that, and then also having that conversation with healthcare professionals, trying to help them understand why we are collecting a specific type of data set. Why is it important to measure weight, for example, and having that continuous measurement of weight? Because if they don't understand, you will have, for the ones who went in my talk earlier, I mentioned a patient who was between 1 or 2 days, the difference of her weight was 30 kilograms. So one day, 31 actually, one day was 60 and the other day was 29. And it's because the healthcare professionals don't understand why we need to capture this data. So you have to have an alignment, what data we're collecting, why are we collecting it, and then how are we collecting it? So what measurements? Is it kilos? Is it pounds? Is it what measurement units do we have? Do we have standardizations we can use? And also AI could help with standardizing a lot of information. But we need to have an alignment.
That's true. A lot of times with computer technology, you actually force it on people to just standardize the data you're collecting. And that's maybe a good use reason for not looking at the workflow, just saying, you're going to take this, you're going to start entering this data.
Well, thank you so much, Sigrid, Professor, Doctor. I think it's been a wonderful time to, discuss about this. We could stay here for the entire afternoon talking about it, but hopefully, definitely the TV is not telling us that. So thank you again for your time. I hope you guys enjoy it.